Dhanavat Pranam, Namaste. All glories to Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam ki jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Canto 1, Creation, Chapter 9, Text 13. Samstite tirate pandau pradabala prajavadhu yusmat krite bahun kleshan praptato kavatimuhu. As far as my daughter-in-law, Kunti, is concerned, upon the great general Pandu's death, she became a widow with many children, and therefore she suffered greatly. And when you were grown up, she suffered a great deal also because of your actions. Purport. The sufferings of Kunti Devi are doubly lamented. She suffered greatly because of early widowhood and to get her minor children brought up in the royal family. And when her children were grown up, she continued to suffer because of her son's actions. So her sufferings continued. This means that she was destined to suffer by providence, and this one has to tolerate without being disturbed. Text 14. Sarvam kala kritam manye bhavatam cha yad apriyam shapalo yad vase loko vayor iva ganhavali. In my opinion, this is all due to inevitable time, under whose control everyone in every planet is carried, just as the clouds are carried by the wind. Purport. There is control by time all over the space within the universe, as there is control by time all over the planets. All the big gigantic planets, including the sun, are being controlled by the force of air, as the clouds are carried by the force of air. Similarly, the inevitable kala, or time, controls even the action of the air and other elements. Everything, therefore, is controlled by the supreme kala, a forceful representative of the Lord within the material world. Thus, Yudhisthira should not be sorry for the inconceivable action of time. Everyone has to bear the actions and reactions of time as long as one is within the conditions of the material world. Yudhisthira should not think that he had committed sins in his previous birth and is suffering the consequence. Even the most pious has to suffer the condition of material nature. But a pious man is faithful to the Lord, for he is guided by the bona fide Brahmana and the Vaishnava following the religious principles. These three guiding principles should be the aim of life. One should not be disturbed by the tricks of eternal time. Even the great controller of the universe, Brahmaji, is also under the control of that time. Therefore, one should not grudge being thus controlled by time, despite being a true follower of religious principles. Text 15. Yatra dharma shuto raja gadapanir vrikodara Kṛṣṇostrigandivam chapam suhrit Kṛṣṇas tato vipat. Oh, how wonderful is the influence of inevitable time! It is irreversible. Otherwise, how can there be reverses in the presence of King Yudhisthira, the son of the demigod controlling religion, Bhīma, the great fighter with a club, the great bowman, Arjuna, with his mighty weapon, Gandhaiva, and above all, the Lord, the direct well-wisher of the Pandavas. Purport. As far as the material or spiritual resources were required, there was no scarcity in the case of the Pandavas. Materially, they were well equipped because two great warriors, namely Bhīma and Arjuna, were there. Spiritually, the king himself was the symbol of religion, and above all of them, the personality of Godhead, Lord Sri Kṛṣṇa, was personally concerned with the affairs as the well-wisher. Yet there were so many reverses on the side of the Pandavas. Despite the power of pious acts, the power of personalities, the power of expert management, and the power of weapons under the direct supervision of Lord Kṛṣṇa, the Pandavas suffered so many practical reverses, which can only be explained as due to the influence of Kala, inevitable time. Kala is identical with the Lord himself, and therefore the influence of Kala indicates the inexplicable wish of the Lord himself. There is nothing to be lamented when a matter is beyond the control of any human being. Text 16. Nahyasya karhichid rajan puman veda vidhitsitam yadvigyasya yukta muhyanti kavayopihi. O king, no one can know the plan of Lord Sri Krishna. Even though great philosophers inquire exhaustively, they are bewildered. Purport. The bewilderment of Maharaj Yudhisthira over his past sinful acts and the resultant sufferings, etc., is completely negated by the great authority Bhīṣma, one of the 12 authorized persons. Bhīṣma wanted to impress upon Maharaj Yudhisthira that since time immemorial, no one, including such demigods as Shiva and Brahma, could ascertain the real plan of the Lord. So what can we understand about it? It is useless also to inquire about it. Even the exhaustive philosophical inquiries of sages cannot ascertain the plan of the Lord. The best policy is simply to abide by the orders of the Lord without argument. The sufferings of the Pandavas were never due to past deeds. The Lord had to execute the plan of establishing a kingdom of virtue, and therefore his own devotees suffered temporarily in order to establish the conquest of virtue. Bhīṣmadeva was certainly satisfied by seeing the triumph of virtue, and he was glad to see King Yudhisthira on the throne, although he himself fought against him. Even a great fighter like Bhīṣma could not win the battle of Kṛṣṇa, because the Lord wanted to show that vice cannot conquer virtue, regardless of who tries to execute it. Bhīṣmadeva was a great devotee of the Lord, but he chose to fight against the Pandavas by the will of the Lord, because the Lord wanted to show that a fighter like Bhīṣma cannot win on the wrong side. Text 17. Tasmadidam daiva tantram vyavasya bharata sabha tasyanu vihito nata pahi praja prabho. O best among the descendants of Bharata, Yudhisthira, I maintain, therefore, that all this is within the plan of the Lord. Accepting the inconceivable plan of the Lord, you must follow it. You are now the appointed administrative head, and my Lord, you should now take care of those subjects who are now rendered helpless. Purport. The popular saying is that a housewife teaches the daughter-in-law by teaching the daughter. Similarly, the Lord teaches the world by teaching the devotee. The devotee does not have to learn anything new from the Lord, because the Lord teaches the sincere devotee always from within. Whenever, therefore, a show is made to teach the devotee, as in the case of the teachings of Bhagavad Gita, it is for teaching the less intelligent men. A devotee's duty, therefore, is to ungrudgingly accept tribulations from the Lord as a benediction. The Pandavas were advised by Bhīṣmadeva to accept the personality of administration without hesitation. The poor subjects were without protection due to the battle of Kṛṣṇa, and they were awaiting the assumption of power by Maharaj Yudhisthira. A pure devotee of the Lord accepts tribulations as favors from the Lord. Since the Lord is absolute, there is no mundane difference between the two. Text 18. Isha vai Bhagavan Sakshad Adyo Narayanan Puman Mohayan Maya Lokam Guras Charati Vrishnushu. This is Sri Kṛṣṇa. He is none other than the inconceivable original personality of Godhead. He is the first Narayana, the supreme enjoyer. But he is moving amongst the descendants of King Kṛṣṇa, just like one of us, and he is bewildering us with his self-created energy. Purport. The Vedic system of acquiring knowledge is the deductive process. The Vedic knowledge is received perfectly by disciplic succession from authorities. Such knowledge is never dogmatic, as ill-conceived by less intelligent persons. The mother is the authority to verify the identity of the father. She is the authority for such confidential knowledge. Therefore, authority is not dogmatic. In the Bhagavad Gita, this truth is confirmed in the second verse of the 4th chapter, and the perfect system of learning is to receive it from the authority. The very same system is accepted universally as truth, but only the false arguer speaks against it. For example, modern spacecraft fly in the sky, and scientists say that they travel to the other side of the moon. Men believe these stories blindly because they have accepted the modern scientists as authorities. The authorities speak and the people in general believe them. But in the case of Vedic truths, they have been taught not to believe. Even if they accept them, they give a different interpretation. Each and every man wants a direct perception of Vedic knowledge, but foolishly they deny it. This means that the misguided man can believe one authority, the scientists, but will reject the authority of the Vedas. The result is that people have degenerated. Here is an authority speaking about Sri Kṛṣṇa as the original personality of Godhead and the first Narayana. Even such an impersonalist as Acharya Shankar has said in the beginning of his commentation of Bhagavad Gita that Narayan, the personality of Godhead, is beyond the material creation. The universe is one of the material creations, but Narayan is transcendental to such material paraphernalia. Bhīṣmadeva is one of the 12 Mahajanas who know the principles of transcendental knowledge. His confirmation of Lord Sri Krishna's being the original personality of Godhead is also corroborated by the impersonalist Shankar. All other acharyas have also confirmed this statement, and thus there is no chance of not accepting Lord Sri Kṛṣṇa as the original personality of Godhead. Bhīṣmadeva says that he is the first Narayana. This is also confirmed by Brahmaji in Bhagavatam 10.14.14. Kṛṣṇa is the first Narayana. In the spiritual world, Vaikuntha, there are unlimited numbers of Narayans, who are all the same personality of Godhead, Sri Kṛṣṇa. The first form of the Lord, Sri Kṛṣṇa, first expands himself as the form of Aniruddha, Vasudeva, Narayan, Purusha, Rama, and Nrsimha. The Lord Sri Kṛṣṇa first expands himself as the form of Baladev, and Baladev expands in so many other forms, such as Sankarshana, Pradyumna, Aniruddha, Vasudeva, Narayana, Purusha, Rama, and Nrsimha. All these expansions are one and the same Vishnu Tattva, and Sri Kṛṣṇa is the original source of all plenary expansions. He is the predominating deity known as Narayana in all Vaikuntha planets. Therefore, his movements amongst human beings are another sort of bewilderment. The Lord therefore says in the Bhagavad Gita that foolish persons consider him to be one of the human beings without knowing the intricacies of his movements. The bewilderment of Sri Kṛṣṇa is due to the action of his twofold internal and external energies upon the third one, called marginal energy. The living entities are expansions of his marginal energy, and thus they are sometimes bewildered by the internal energy, and sometimes by the external energy. By internal energetic bewilderment, Sri Kṛṣṇa expands himself into unlimited numbers of Narayanas and exchanges or accepts transcendental loving service from the living entities in the transcendental world. And by his external energetic expansions, he incarnates himself in the material world amongst the men, animals, or demigods to re-establish his forgotten relation with the living entities in different species of life. Great authorities like Bhīṣmadeva, however, escape his bewilderment by the mercy of the Lord. Text 19. Asyan bhavam bhagavan veda guyatmam shivaha devrishir narada sakshad bhagavan kapilo nripa. O King, Lord Shiva, Narada the sage amongst the demigods, and Kapila, the incarnation of Godhead, all know very confidently about his glories through direct contact. Purport. Pure devotees of the Lord are all Buddhas, or persons who know the glories of the Lord in different transcendental loving services. As the Lord has innumerable expansions of his plenary form, there are innumerable pure devotees of the Lord who are engaged in the exchange of service of different humors. Ordinarily, there are 12 great devotees of the Lord, namely Brahma, Narada, Shiva, Kumar, Kapila, Manu, Prahlad, Bhīṣma, Janaka, Shukadeva, Goswami, Bali Maharaj, and Yamaraj. Bhīṣmadeva, although one of them, has mentioned only 3 important names of the 12 who know the glories of the Lord. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, one of the great acharyas in the modern age, explains that Anubhav, or the glory of the Lord, is first appreciated by the devotee in ecstasy, manifesting the symptoms of perspiring, trembling, weeping, bodily eruptions, etc., which are further enhanced by steady understanding of the glories of the Lord. Such different understandings of bhavas are exchanged between Yashoda and the Lord, binding the Lord by ropes, and in the chariot driving by the Lord in the exchange of love. These glories are the Lord and are exhibited in his being subordinated before his devotees, and that his mother and that another feature of the glories of the Lord. That is another feature of the glories of the Lord. Shukadeva Goswami and the Kumars, although situated on the transcendental platform, become converted by another feature of bhava and turned into pure devotees of the Lord. Tribulations imposed upon the devotees by the Lord constitute another exchange of transcendental bhava between the Lord and between the devotees. The Lord says, I put my devotee into difficulty, and thus the devotee becomes more purified in exchanging transcendental bhava with me. Placing the devotee into material troubles means delivering him from the illusory material relations. The material relations are based on reciprocation of material enjoyment, which depends mainly on material resources. Therefore, when material resources are withdrawn by the Lord, the devotee is cent% attracted toward the transcendental loving service of the Lord. Thus, the Lord, his devotee, the Lord and the devotee are different from the tribulations resulting from vicious action. All these glories of the Lord are especially known by the great Mahajanas like Brahma, Shiva, Narada, Kapila, Kumar, and Bhīṣma, as mentioned above, and one is able to grasp it by their grace. We'll continue from text 20 on Wednesday. Thus ends our reading for today. All glories to Sripad Bhakti Madhava Puri Maharaj Ki Jai. All glories to Om Vishnupad Srila Bhakti Nirmala Charja Maharaj Ki Jai. All glories to Om Vishnupad Srila Bhakti Sundar Govinda Dev Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai. All glories to Om Vishnupad Srila Bhakti Rakshak Sridhar Dev Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai. All glories to Om Vishnupad Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. All glories to Om Vishnupad. All glories to Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parvadikacharya Jagad Guru Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Thakur Ki Jai. Nitai Gaur Hari Hari Bol. All glories to the assembled devotees Ki Jai. All glories to the worldwide devotees Ki Jai. Bhakti Vrinda Ki Jai. Jai Shripad Bhakti Niskam Shanta Maharaj Ki Jai. Jai Shripad Bhakti Vigyan Muni Maharaj Ki Jai. All glories to Navadvip Dham Ki Jai. Mayapur Dham Ki Jai. Nishingapuli Dham Ki Jai. Ekachakra Dham Ki Jai. All glories to Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai. Baladev Subhadra Jagannath Ju Ki Jai. All glories to Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Giri Govardhan Gupta Govardhan Dham Ki Jai. Sham Kund Radha Kund Ki Jai. Tulsi Devi Bhakti Devi Vrinda Devi Ki Jai. Nitai Gaur Pramanandi Hari 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 Bol.